Have you ever heard a reseller claim that an item has over 100% sell-through rate? Have you maybe thought to yourself, that doesn't make any sense? Well, I'm here to tell you, it doesn't. STR, or sell-through rate, is a metric used by businesses to measure the percentage of inventory sold compared to the inventory received over a specific period of time. It is essentially a tool to see how much inventory of a specific SKU a business will need over a certain period of time to calculate how much they need to order. The equation kind of looks like this, which is, the number of solds divided by the number of units times 100 to get the percentage. You have seen this equation before, especially if you've watched larger YouTubers, and especially the ones who like to sell their courses, with the fancy graphics and the master classes on how to sell used goods on eBay, right? But I'm here to tell you, they are using it incorrectly. STR is meant to measure a single SKU's performance, not a brand or specific item on eBay. STR is a representation of a specific item within a specific time frame. On eBay, STR is commonly referred to a broad scope of data where past information, typically 90 days, is compared to a fluctuation of data points of active listings. What I find scary and disingenuous overall is they will peddle STR as an accurate representation of an item that should be bought to resell. It's a false premise that needs to be explained. If you're new here, my name is Kevin, the Stoic Reseller. I buy new and used clothing to sell on eBay and Poshmark for a profit. If you're into deep dives, what sold, thrift hauls, and honest reselling advice, please hit the thumbs up, subscribe, and comment below. All right, so part one is going to be a visual. All right, so let's review an item together to refresh your memory on how YouTubers typically calculate sell-through rate. I sell mainly clothing items. So an example that just came off the top of my mind is a Patagonia Better sweater. So let's jump right onto eBay. We're going to do a men's used Better sweater, okay? So let's go Patagonia Better sweater in men, top search result. We're going to filter to buy it now, condition used. Okay, so now let's pull up our handy dandy calculator. And we're going to do some calculations, right? Oh, wait a minute. Oops. It's the wrong calculation. Sorry about that. I still have my mind in middle school. But anyways, we're going to do some calculations, right? So we have 7,700 items listed, right? Now let's go down here and click sold. So we have 5,400 sold. So we're going to take 5,400 divided by this 7,700 that were listed, right? Times this by 100, and you come out with a 70.13% sell-through rate. I would say by the bulk majority of eBayers that are also YouTubers, or the YouTubers that are eBayers. Let me know in the comments. The bulk majority would say that this generally is a good item, right? Do you agree with that assessment? A 70% sell-through rate? According to this kind of metric system, I would argue maybe not. Who knows? But the problem is there's really kind of like multiple problems here. The first problem is the math isn't actual math. There's some flaws that I'll discuss later. And the second is that we're not taking into account the multiple arbitrary numbers that fluctuate throughout the month, the week, or even by the hour. As you just saw, the Better sweater is a solid item, right? Well, why don't we take a deeper look? If you wanted to get a more accurate scope of whatever you find, you need to use multiple data points. Condition, color, size, new use, damage, undamaged. eBay has over 20 plus item specifics that you can filter through, right? When resellers, which does include me in the past, and I'm trying to actively change my frame of thought here, use backwards methods of sell-through, they rarely filter down to every single data point. It's cherry-picked snapshot to tell you whether or not an item is good or to pick up. This is the incorrect way to determine if an item will sell. We need more information. We need a better understanding of what we have in our hands. Sell-through rate does not substitute for actual research or knowledge. This part in here is seasonal velocity. So something that a lot of resellers will mention on their YouTube channels, but they casually ignore it often, is seasonality. If we took a snapshot of the Better Sweater and Terapeak research, which is very easy to get to. So let's go from here. This is our sold screen. You go to selling. And up here, if you're on the phone, it's like you got to scroll down and it's kind of down towards the bottom. But on desktop here, you just go here, research, product research, right? And then we're going to type in Patagonia Better Sweater, right? And we're going to go men's. That's what we were just looking at. Do condition. We'll do all the conditions just because why not? Okay. So you can see here's the sold pricing range, right? Throughout the last 3 years. You can see that it's actively, on average, gone down in price over time. But what I really am curious is I want to go here to the total solds. Now, this graph looks pretty insane, right? So there's peaks and valleys, and it clearly shows that the peaks are between November and January, with declining sales starting in February all the way through August. What I'm trying to point out here is that STR, or sell-through rate, will never represent this kind of data. If I were to find a better sweater tomorrow, depending on multiple factors, I would probably want to pick it up. We are at the very beginning of the upward velocity of this item selling. Now, however, if I was to find this in March, right? Let's see what we have. Let's go March, right? March, here's the end of February, early March. So you can start to see this is even before, maybe it's like really January is the peak, and then February is the downturn, like I mentioned. If I found this in March, I'd have 3 options, right? Option 1, I can just not buy it. Option 2 is I could buy it, list it, and pray that it sells before, I don't know, May. Option 3 is I could just, keep the item, not list it, and hold it off into some storage facility until, I don't know, September or October of the following year, right? Or of that year. What I'm trying to convey is that if you were to have picked this up in March, sell-through rate on the item would have been excellent, or a lot better than it was in our example here in September. Or we're in October, huh? It's been crazy. So what I'm trying to tell you is that you really just need to have product knowledge. You have to understand and have experience in buying things to understand if it's actually a decent item or not. Okay? Out of the 3 options I gave you, if I found this in March, the most efficient, profitable decision I can make is to not buy it. Right? We need to remove emotion and pay attention to data. Because if I buy it, say the thrift stores around me, I'd probably pay on average between $10 to $13 for a better sweater, if not more, because of Patagonia's name. If I bought that and listed it in March, odds are it's not going to sell. Why? Because we're already on the steep decline of those solds. I don't want to sit on an item and wait another 6 to 7 months before the item sells, because that, what did I say, like maybe $20. Let's just make an even number. Say I spend $20 on the item. I'm going to be holding on to that item for 7 months. That $20 now becomes dead capital, and that listing has now become a dead listing on eBay. It is buried in search results because it's not in demand, and it won't be in demand until later on. And then we have to do all sorts of mitigation to reactivate that item, right? So, between sales, delist, relist, I have to put even more effort to make the sale of the item if I was to buy it. I personally would rather just leave it there, save the $20, reinvest into an item that is going to be better seasonally or just has better overall ability to sell than that Patagonia Better Sweater. So keep that in mind. That's just one strategy that STR does not account for. As you can probably tell by now, I'm really against this STR method when it comes to sourcing. Specifically because eBay is a very chaotic website. If I find a better sweater like we've been using, I would have to literally use 20 different points to narrow it down to the specific item I have in my hand. And then I'd have to make an educated guess, or whatever you want to call it, to determine if it's actually a decent item to sell or not. And that's without attributing seasonality to it. I mean, in that past example, we used March. What if I found it in September? It would be a better buy in September than it would be March. But what if I found it in July? You know, so there's too many factors to really use STR as a primary sourcing method or metric to determine if an item should be bought or not. There are too many factors, like I mentioned, to give you an accurate representation or scope of how quickly an item will sell. Remember, all the data points such as color and size, well, what about pricing, photos, promoted rate, store connections? It all adds up to an incorrect gauge on the item. Notice how I mentioned that there's additional factors that cannot be filtered by the customer, right? It's intrinsically filtered by the customer in pricing, photos, and then there's things that you can't, that are beyond the customer's scope, which is promoted rate and whether or not they follow a store and then they get a really good offer from someone. But the scope of this is kind of wild. There's too many data points and not enough full understanding. Instead, what we should be looking at is the velocity of an item, demand for the brand, what price we can get, etc. There's other factors in determining whether an item is good or not. When I choose to pick up Nike items, for instance, I share a lot of the Nike items I sell. A lot of them don't have very many solds or actives represented on eBay. And I'm factoring specifically the style number, right? So in theory, I should have a better scope and understanding of the sell-through rate of that item. But a lot of times, you have to utilize the factors that are intrinsic to what you've done or experienced over time. And what that is, it's a combination of understanding, research, and experience. That's all stuff that you get over time, except for understanding, right? Or even research, I guess you could do right now. I would highly recommend something that I did when I first started reselling is to just take pictures of tags of items. Go into eBay and dig deep in the solds. Build your product knowledge. That's all it is product knowledge. It doesn't tell you if you're a good reseller or not. It just tells you have a lot of product knowledge. So that honestly, in the way we do e-commerce, which is just buying used stuff and selling it on eBay, STR cannot be used. It's not a crystal ball. Essentially, it's what STR is. It's a report card or a snapshot of the last 90 days that kind of give you a small glimpse of the demand for whatever you're holding in your hands. Next is the math, right? So as I mentioned earlier, the math just doesn't add up. Let me show you an Excel spreadsheet. Let me minimize myself here. Let me make sure this is fully accessible. Okay, so you can see here. Let me see if I can zoom in, make these numbers a little bit bigger. Okay, so what I got here, I gotta make myself a little bit smaller, I suppose. There you go. Okay, so I'm going to show you the calculations. Okay, so this would be 1 listed, 100 sold, and then going down and coming down to here where there's 100 listed and 1 sold. Right. The equation that most YouTubers will argue is correct is you take column B divided by column A to get your sell-through rate. So if 1 was listed and 100 sold, you'd get a 10,000% sell-through rate. If you multiply it by 100, you get a percentage, right? And if you had 2 and 99 sold, 4,950% sell-through rate. Oh! Can you see how this is ridiculous? Are these true numbers? I don't think they're true numbers, guys. So if you go over here to the right, I did the correct math because you can't have more than 100% of an item represented. If you had 10,000% sell-through rate, that would mean that 10,000, or 900 or 9,900 of the item quantity-wise sold than there are available. Can't really do that. So the correct math, and I'll show you the thing here, where it should be column F divided by 1 plus column F, which gives you 99%, right? And well, I guess maybe I should have corrected it to show it in here. We'll do that in real time, right? So you want to do that. So it represents in math or a percentage. Bam, there you go. So now you can see these are factors of 100, correct? Like nothing goes over 100%. And if this was 0 listed and 100 sold, you'd have 100% here. But I just did it from a factor of 1 to 100 and 100 to 1. Sell-through rate can never truly be over 100%. Let's just think about it. If there's a 1,069% STR, that would imply that you have 10 times the quantity produced or sold. How can you sell more items than available? The way I look at these data points on eBay is more of an accurate measure. It's still arbitrary because it's based on constantly randomly changing data points. At the very least, I am not lying to myself. If by the correct calculation, an item has a 50% sell-through rate, that gives me an idea that half of the items represented will probably sell within 90 days. Do you see the difference here? If someone told you it has a 100% sell-through rate, your expectation is that the item should sell immediately, right? 100% sell-through rate. Think about how does that emotionally trigger you, right? It's think about that. 100%, we as from young to adults, 100% completion means you're completely done, right? 100% of anything means the full amount. Well, if you have 1,000% of something, that doesn't quite make sense, right? It's like that old adage when your dad says give 110%. Well, you can't give 110% because all you have is 100% to give. But see, the expectation just doesn't add up, right? You'll find out that your hopes will quickly be dashed when the item sits for 90 days or longer. What eBay provides is a 90-day window, and that should only be utilized to determine velocity and demand, not a for sure or not sure determination of buying an item. If there are more sold than listed, odds are it's an all right item. With that said, you should have a very specific metric that you utilize to find profitable items. And remember, you bought the item and it needs to sell. Next is a reality check for everyone. As you can see, the majority of the information on STR that you are fed that exists in this echo chamber of reselling on YouTube is false. It provides false hope, false representation, and improper metrics in determining what a good item is. The reality here is this is a touchy subject to most. People have become so tribal in society. You're red versus blue. You're black or white. You're purple or green. You're a Dolphins fan. You're a Patriots fan. They all suck anyways. And if you challenge any common knowledge, you will be attacked and harassed, even if the knowledge they were provided is misguided and inaccurate, and your portrayal of the information is accurate. People just do not like to admit that information they believe to be true is wrong. Just look at the news. I am trying to change my own frame of thought around reselling. Look at my last few videos on trying to educate you. I opened a second store, which I'll have more on that to come in a later video. I challenged listing daily, and now I'm challenging the sell-through rate. Next week, I'll be challenging going wide or staying a narrow store, which is best. At the end of the day, to succeed in our basic function as resellers, you need to be fed the proper information, not gimmicks, not courses, not false hopes. Honesty and knowledge is what you will find here at this channel, not fake garbage that is echoed by other sellers or YouTubers. Last step here is my strategy. So you may be wondering, okay, well, Stoic, what are you doing? What makes you so different? Well, nothing really makes me different other than the principal understanding of what we're all trying to accomplish, right? We buy items and sell those items. It's really just that simple. It shouldn't be rocket science. All these people from I'm going to start naming people, Kaylee Eileen or Mogi Beth, or, Tech's even been, I like Tech, don't get me wrong, but he's even been accountable for some of these weird metrics. all these people try to sell you these crazy courses, these crazy ideas that reselling can be this great, amazing scheme of thing. What I'm trying to challenge here is that whole frame of thought, because it's completely ridiculous. We pick up an item. Why do we want to sit on this item? Isn't the purpose of buying it to resell it, to make money? I'm sure we can all resonate with that. And it doesn't matter if that item sits for 10 days or 90 days or 120 days. The fact of the matter is you bought the item with one clear intention, and that is to profit from it. So personally, I'm changing how I source from now on. My sourcing strategy for the last month and a half has been looking at an item from the prism of a 30-day sell-through. Can I get this item to sell within 30 days? And then creating a strategy to move the item so that my furthest tail item is 90 days. My store has been ravaged by my inadequacies and my inability to focus and to manage my inventory. However, I find it important to explain that moving forward, I will be sourcing items, as I mentioned, through a scope of 30 days. I make that determination based on experience, what data is available, and what season I am in. I have been practicing this philosophy for unknowingly for about a year, but haven't managed it properly. You may ask, well, what happens to an item that doesn't sell? Well, let me show you real quick. Let me go over here. I'm going to go to my listings that are active. I'm going to minimize myself. I want you to see. Okay, so this is my current primary store. You can see I have, at the time of this video, 1,356 items, which I personally believe is twice as many as I need. But let's go here, right? I want to do based on price. Boop. There you go. So I'm not hiding anything from anyone on this channel. I have items that have sat in my store for years. And my strategy moving forward is to discount the living hell out of them to get them to move. Because I don't want these anymore. The items are bad. These were bad buys that I need to move on from. Okay? This is not ideal. And it doesn't matter what any YouTuber will tell you. You should never have an item in your store longer than 90 days. And why do I choose 90 days? Because that's the metric that they all tell you about, right? It has a 100% sell-through rate, 900% sell-through rate, 69% sell-through rate. And what does that derive from? A 90-day metric window. So they don't even understand what they're telling you. I have not heard any other YouTuber make that distinction. You know, they all stand in front of their freaking warehouses full of 6,900 boxes. And I'm going to use that term 69 a lot because I'm a child at heart. I'm still a teenager, even though how old I am. I don't care. Think about that. They are showing how proud they are of accumulating 6,000 items, 10,000 items. I had 200,000 items in my store. Think about how crazy and chaotic that has to be. Think about how wild it is to even think about having that many items. And then the concept of you sitting on that many items is wild. But hey, I'm getting off track here, and that's going to be a topic for next week, right? So moving forward, any item 31 days to 60 days in my store will be discounted at 10%. Anything 61 to 90 will be discounted at 20%. 91 days to 120 days will be discounted 40%. And then 121 days and above will be discounted at 70%. This, in theory, will allow me to manage my inventory while reducing losses. And I just want you to put this into perspective. Remember, why did you get into this? To profit, right? So reselling isn't a storage business. But again, I will get back into that in a later video. In conclusion, remember that sell-through rate, or STR, is not what people discuss on their channels. STR is often misrepresented as a crystal ball of how well an item is selling. Also, when your favorite YouTuber states this has a 169% sell-through rate, remind them that they must have failed math, as you cannot sell over 100% of the supply of any given item. When measuring if an item is good buy or not, difficult but not impossible. Remember that the listed to sold metrics is a determination of what has been listed and what has sold. Essentially, it's a gauge of demand. You can use how many sold in 90 days to get a very rough estimate of velocity within a month. If you learn anything from this video, please, for the love of God, be it that any data point on one-off items on eBay is arbitrarily derived and flawed at best. There is not an accurate representation of data because you are selling an item that has numerous factors that cannot be well represented in any data point that eBay presents to you at face level. If you found this information helpful or even triggering, hit the thumbs up button, comment below, and make sure to hit the subscribe button. My next video will be digging into the math and myth of growing an eBay store. Essentially, a narrow store or a wide store. You want to be fat or you want to be skinny. I don't know, guys. But do me a favor and remember one thing, to never forget to rule the day.